Guys, it's me, Patrice, and today's been an interesting day. Everything seems interesting lately, a lot, really. So today on my story, this is the card that came up, and this is the Two of Pentacles. And the way I described it is that this guy is an entertainer on a cruise ship, and you could see that the waves are making all of the boats kind of wobbly. And so outside of our environment, things are rocky. Things are all over the place. And this guy, amid all of the chaos, and you've seen people having to slide across in a cruise ship, his job is to distract everybody. So he's balancing. Most people can barely stand on the ground while he's balancing on a ball, while he's juggling. The infinity symbols in there. So there's a lot that keeps coming up for me with the X. I mean, if you're if you're on any spiritual journey, you know that we are just going all around in our lives, right? There's duality. And so this is balancing that chaos. Am I a good guy in someone's story? Am I a bad guy in someone's story? Am I a good guy in my story or am I a bad guy in my story, right? And ultimately we want to stay at that center. We want to be in the X, right? We're Generation X. No doubt that while Generation X is in charge, all of the chaos is coming out because that is our spiritual journey is to balance it all, right? So here's this guy. Everything's going crazy. He's balancing on a ball while juggling with this guy who's his friend, who's on his head, right? And so in addition to all of his chaos, he has to stay balanced enough to support someone else and all of the chaos that they have going on, right? And I don't know about you guys, but for me, this guy's got it easy with only two equally shaped things to juggle, because what it's really felt like is that we're juggling cats and flaming sticks and knives and babies and everybody's feelings in between. No question, that is absolutely the energy that I'm feeling and that I'm hearing other people feel too. So that's kind of our juggling energy. So that's kind of what's on the outside. And then the other thing in our environmental energy is the burdens, right? What are the burdens? The burdens are the things that we thought were going to make us happy. All of these candy canes that we worked so hard to find something that would bring us joy, right? We all thought we wanted a sweet tooth. Well, that sugar gets to be heavy. And by the way, this expresses in our life, whether it's decisions that we're making that end up, they seem sweet at the beginning, but they're not good for our teeth. They're not healthy for our body. It could be food, or it could be people or habits or whatever. So it's that burden. And its burdens are the things that we thought we wanted. This guy has collected all of this candy and it's just too much to carry. So it's not about him carrying things that he didn't think he'd like. This is a guy who's carrying a burden of the things that they believe that he wanted, but it's just too much. And then the last one that's behind there that I want to pull out is the moon. And the moon is the unknown. The moon is, the way that I like to read it, is that it's up to you. Because if you invest in something, if you put 100% and say, I'm going to figure this out, hashtag we do what it takes, well, then you're going to get success, right? And if you don't invest what it takes to get in, then the moon means not success. If you're doing shortcut, then you're not going to. So this is one of those that you really do have a blank slate, and it just kind of depends on what we invest to figure out if we have success, right? And of course, there's my little crawfish because I'm from Louisiana. So he's kind of doing that conductor thing. And you guys have heard me talk about the card that's the Magician, which is also makes me think of musician, and it makes me think of a conductor who is conducting music, right? He creates that energy. So the instruments are played by the players, the band players or whatever. However, he creates that environment. So if somebody's driving the boat, but who's creating the wake of the ocean, right? The winds and the sea ultimately are going to be deciding on what that boat does. So there's the guy who's in there steering it, but ultimately it's our outside environment, right? So here he is making that conducting. And so we have to be the conductors of our lives, right? The people around us want to make those little, they want to steer. In fact, everybody always wants to steer. So what do we have to do? We have to create an environment so that they can steer, hopefully in the direction that keeps them and us safe. So that's how I'm seeing this for our burdens. And it certainly matches with my little cruise ship, our wobbly cruise ship energy of this guy's trying his best to stay still. So let's see what the tarot is going to tell us this afternoon. Okie dokie. Okay. So on the outside, we've got 5 total. I've got 3 of Pentacles. So this is building something. And hopefully it's building something playful. This looks like a fun little carousel. I actually get sick on rides, but this is one of the few rides that if I focus properly, I can still ride like a child. And I still do. But so this is building something. And what are we building? We're building something that makes us happy. Look at this. It's kind of like, it's a very joyful thing. And you have to make a choice to be on there. And usually these don't go very fast, which means you can get off anytime you choose. So this is, we're building something that we have the right to be on, and we've chosen it for that reason. But the thing that's been coming up a lot for me, I deal with contracts for a living, right? And I deal with a lot of people in chaos in many cases. And what's interesting is that right now there's so much tension and people are getting distracted with he said, she said, and missing the original intent and missing what the contract was kind of put together for. Like that's really what we're dealing with right now. Not just me, like a lot of that energy seems to be coming out. It's almost like people are afraid of being pressured into something. So remember, whatever it is that we have going on in our life, what was our original intent? And did we make a choice to get on there because it looked like a really fun ride, right? If it's moving too fast, then we just have to make some changes. And then where does this apply? This is for, sorry, I have it upside down, but it's neat because this does look like it's kind of that yin yang, the infinity thing, right? It's going in circles. And this is the Two of Cups. So this is the cup of love. Last time we had it with the two roses. It's what are we investing ourselves in? And again, we're having a lot of water energy. And so this is just really reciprocal, very happy, very joyful, and really, really sweet. So whatever our commitments are, remember that when it began, it's probably something that we got into because we loved it, right? Maybe we are putting that kind of energy and maybe we aren't. The inner cards say something different. So the inner cards is saying, this is the card of disappointment. And in this card, what I always think about is that this guy is similar to that card we had with all the candy canes. Like he's so busy accumulating all of this stuff that's in there. But when he gets in there with that, he feels trapped. He feels trapped in this treasure chest, right? But it's on display for everybody to see, like, look at my wonderful collection here, right? The universe is giving you a small, very simple cup, but this guy is kind of hoarding that. So this is saying that I'm disappointed by all of this that I've accumulated, and the universe is saying, I might have another option for you. And here's our emperor. And this is kind of like the pampered poodle emperor. And he's saying, I'm on my throne. Like, I was born into this, right? Like, that poodle always has that royal kind of a feeling to it. He's sitting there on the throne with his scepter, kind of waiting for everything to happen for him. So for me, this is kind of like whatever it is that we got into a relationship. And by the way, we have 2, 3, 4, and I'm always obsessed with numerology. So that's a big number for me. 3, 4, 2 is actually how it's come up. So what is it that we got involved in that we are making a commitment to because we thought it'd be joyful? And oh, by the way, we might be getting a little bit seasick from going around that same turn all the time. That we have been, should be, and will continue to want to invest in. So that's kind of the question. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so I accidentally, you don't need to hear how I flipped it, but so we ended up with the Knight of Wands, which we had last week too, that in and out energy. He was the one that was wrapped around the dandelion, who loved the dandelion, but didn't really feel like he was powerful enough and enough of a king to kind of get that level of love and truth that he wanted. So this one though, this is like a gallant knight that's on a mission. Like he is going out. And the wands are passion. So he's going out to find out what he's passionate about. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with in and out energy if you don't know what you want. Until you make that commitment, you know, we have the commitment on whatever that card is. We get to decide and we get to experiment. I was talking with my 11-year-old sweetheart, and she was telling me about school. And we were talking about, she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. My daughter in college is still trying to figure out if she wants to do what her major is. And I know many adults that are doing that same. So it's that it's okay with in and out energy. It's okay to figure things out and to try them until you make a decide what you want to commit to. And here's the Fool. Similar sunshine, by the way. And the Fool is that, well, it's not knowing. It's kind of being impetuous. And this guy's going on a journey with absolutely no knowledge. So, and some people might call that foolish. But anytime we're doing anything new, well, we have to be a fool. Whether you're a fool in love or a fool in taking a risk for business, anyone who's ever been successful, you've had to be willing to look a fool. You've had to be willing to put yourself out there and to not know. I mean, how do we learn outside of experience? And then we've got the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of Fortune is a slight change. So I sometimes show it like the world has just been ticked off to the side. And I talk about our science and our world. Our magnetism's changing. The science is literally changing. It's quite fascinating. It's not that, well, the science is changing, I would suspect a little. The energy is changing, which we're seeing. And also, I think we're allowing a more open understanding. Sorry that my vacuum cleaner is just coming to this room. This is me doing my chores here. But this is like, we don't get to be in control. There's someone who's controlling this. Remember I talked about earlier about like, yeah, we can drive the ship, but it's really the wind and the seas that are going to determine how successful we can be. Same thing. We're staying in our little cups a little bit, but we don't get to control all of it, right? The universe has some control in what's going on. The world is turning in some ways. We just have to do the best that we can in that cup. And so we're looking at, again, that Fool energy. And this is the card of experimentation. So as things are changing in our world, let's give ourselves the permission to be experimenting, to see our life as an experiment and find out, what do we love, right? Just because I loved something yesterday doesn't mean I have to love it today. I'm going to see if I can turn off that vacuum. Okay, it's under the couch. Sorry, guys. Welcome to my world. Yeah, sorry. So, but anyway, so that is our, here we go. Gosh. So, sorry. That is the energy, is like, we need to see life as an experiment. We need to be able to go in and out and figure out, like, do I like this? I don't know. Let me give it a shot, right? So that's the energy. Be willing to be a fool, realizing that things are changing, and give ourselves permission to go to decide, to look at things both ways. Okay, so here we have the Page of Pentacles, which is the page of learning. And this is, Pentacles is stability, and it's concrete, and it's material, and it oftentimes is business, but really I see it a lot of times as that commitment. What are you taking seriously? Because again, if you are giving your relationship the energy and treating it like business, seriously, then that could be that too. So whatever it is that you're investing in, whatever kind of knowledge, like this guy is on his grand adventure. And the page, you've seen, the knights and the kings, right? The page is the one that's like carrying around the knight's heavy wand or like his equipment, right? And that guy can barely carry anything. He's really awkward. So it's okay to be really awkward when we're starting something new, right? We're a page. We're just starting this. So it's only fair. So this is a very similar message. This is about learning and experimenting, that same thing of like, just keep gathering information and kind of making your best choice. And then here's the complete different energy here. So it almost feels like there's a choice. You can either be experimenting and learning, and there's the sun, which is, of course, represents happiness and power and all of those things. Or we could stay trapped in our Nine of Swords. And the Nine of Swords is the card of like pacing the kitchen at 4 a.m, not being able to sleep, waking up with all of that stress. So this is saying maybe lots of us are in there. We're feeling like, look how confusing it is. There's so much going on there. And that squirrel's like, you know what? I'm leaving this forest and I'm going to go on my grand adventure and figuring out what's best for me. So this is definitely a card of, if we are feeling this, and I think most of us are, if we're feeling some sort of anxiety, enjoy the possibility of like giving yourself permission to just like go be an adventurer. You're not supposed to know everything. You're not even a knight yet, but there's no rush to be a knight. You're not going to dethrone the knight, but the best thing that you can do is learn from that knight, trusting that that knight is learned from the king and queen. And our last card, we're ending on the King of Cups. I love this cup because the King of Cups, you guys always hear, he's come up a lot. The king protects his castle. And so in this one, this is the King of Cups. That's the cup of love. So I've talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again because I think it's important. So the queen goes out. She's got a lot of stuff to do, right? So showing love sometimes is outward, and sometimes the queen is an overgiver, and sometimes she expects her cup to be filled. I'm sure we've all been there. This king, he's very steady. He stays in it. Look how in balance he is. And again, remember we talked about like our cruise ships that were rocking? It doesn't matter how much chaos this is. This guy is so good at balancing. He's holding that cup from the universe. It just doesn't matter. Like he can manage it all. He's not, sorry, there's a cup at the bottom that I saw that always makes me relate to this cup. So let me pull that out too. But it doesn't matter how big the waves are. It doesn't matter what's going on for anybody else. Like all of these little people are kicking and screaming and crying. This guy has done what it takes because he is so balanced that he can literally ride the wave of the ocean. This is what I was going to show you is I almost pulled this and I didn't. That's kind of freaking me out. This is the card that was below the moon. And so sometimes I oftentimes think for that cup, This is the Page of Cups. And so the page is like small love. You only give a little bit at a time. And that's come up a lot for us too, is to do that test. Just give a little bit of love to people and see what they do with it. But your small cup of love, for some of us, that we give so much love that our cup of love feels overwhelming to people, right? How many times, I know that's happened for me a lot. Sometimes people think that like they see a level of either friendship or romantic connection because I give so much to everybody that sometimes people assume that like I'm giving them the whole ocean. But it's just that I am a very deep person. And so my cup of love feels like that to other people, right? My depths sometimes are so deep that it's hard. So isn't that interesting? How crazy that we ended up getting this cup. So wherever you are, it wants you to have that perspective of like, just ride on the top. Only give a little bit to people and see how they can master it, right? And then, only then, if they're using it well, that's when we can come out and ride. Because we don't want to intimidate people with our love either, right? The whole point is that we don't want to be like, my cup of love, I have such depth of love that like I can give you a little cup and you can still barely swim in it. I think for those of us that have that level of love, that old soul energy that can love unconditionally and can give at a higher level, I don't think it wants us to like intimidate people with that either. And I think sometimes that can be intimidating. So from now on, it wants us, and this was our message last week too, is to work on giving a smaller cup, is being that page. There's nothing wrong with a page. That's actually the message that came up a lot earlier too, right? It's be that knight, allow yourself to go in and out. It's be that fool, allow yourself to do something new. See this all as such an experiment and just give out a small cup of love. And realize our power that we have the ability to stand on. Like when things get bumpy, like ride it like a king. Don't do it in a showy way, right? But embody that you have got this all figured out. Like that's why we can balance on the ocean. Okay. And I always like to pull the last couple cards so that we can have advice from the universe. And I'm going to just go straight out and do 3. Let's see what we've got. Okay. So we have the King of Wands, and the King of Wands is fiery. The King of Wands likes it his way. He's the Burger King, right? He's got to have it his way. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having it your way. But you do have to realize that you're living on a cactus sometimes. So your way might be prickly for someone else. You're very comfortable on this cactus, right? Your way is where you're comfortable. Of course you are. You have the feathers that protect you. But you also need to be aware that like your cactus, they're tiny for you, but they still can prickle other people that aren't prepared for it. So it's great to have things your way, and do be aware that some people may need time to adjust to that. And that's okay. And then we have the card of strength. There's the card of strength. And he's sitting on his book of knowledge. Like what makes us strong is our wisdom, is knowing things. It's that education. He's just like, he's in no rush. There's always an infinity symbol over him. But oh, what a coincidence. He's got a little animal on his head as well. So when we are standing in that strength, when we're the room where other people, there are plenty of people that feel like they all have to be the Christmas tree in the room. Been there. There's some of us that feel like we have to be the star on every Christmas tree. Been there. At some point, it gets hard because when we are embodying that Christmas tree or that star energy, everybody just wants to compete with us. Everybody thinks like, oh, she just wants that attention, right? So this is the other option, is to be that strength and to be the room. How can we be the room so that we can make everyone else feel like the star on the top of the Christmas tree? If we can create an energy of holding that space so that everyone can feel like they're the most important person, right? Then things are just that much easier. So that's what this is like embrace that you can hold someone up, right? In this person's house, of course, you're happy with like having a guy on your head. You literally live carrying people all the time. You stand on your knowledge, right? You're always growing. That's an awesome card. And then lastly, the Knight of Cups. And the Knight of Cups goes out and gives that love. So earlier we had the little teacup that I had was the Page of Cups, right? So I was talking about not overgiving, but this guy does go out and give love. So wherever you go, how do you do that? You give a cup of love. You give that kindness. You give that sweetness. And of course, we never expect anything in return. So we want everything to be our way, right? Knowing that there's some prickles on the outside, and that's okay. We see ourselves as the strength, and that we want to create an environment where everyone gets to feel like the Christmas tree in the room, or the topper on the Christmas tree, or whatever that is. We want to empower people, right? How do we do that? We do that by giving them love. by giving them unconditional love, tiny cups at a time, and let's see how they respond. Depending on how they respond, we can decide if we want to continue, or just like this is an experiment, we can have in and out energy any old time, because everything's changing. And when everything's changing, the only thing that we can do is adapt. And because everything is new, we get to give ourselves permission to react differently. The things that you liked yesterday, you don't have to like today. And the things that you like today, you don't have to like tomorrow, right? Everything in life, I'm a science nerd, so that's how everything in science is. Science is the only way to prove something is to disprove everything else. So it's time for us to see our lives as adventures. We need to start looking for no's, because that's how we build the boundaries to encapsulate our yes, right? That's how we create that room. You have to create the walls of where you don't want to go. So hopefully this resonates with some people. It certainly was nice for me. And again, whatever you invest in, you get. And yay, Louisiana crawfish. Have a great day. Enjoy your balancing, everyone. Thank you for those of you that like and comment, because that always helps me to know what's going on, and I'd love some feedback. Bye.